a lot of you have asked about my trip to Israel. Israel was incredible. It was exceeded my expectations in so many ways. I could go for about 2 hours today with stories. That'd be a lot of fun. I don't think it would be the most best use of our time, but anyway, I could tell you stories about what Jerusalem was like and things I experienced there, or the valley of Elah where David killed Goliath, or we did the traditional, hey, take a boat out onto the Sea of Galilee. Well, after dinner that night, me and 5 other guys decided, let's do that again, and we went and rented a janky 10 horsepower boat so we could go out and swim on the Sea of Galilee, which we did. However, we almost sunk that boat. And I wasn't driving, but I was laughing the whole time and thought, you know what? This is really ironic that we are sinking on the Sea of Galilee. I think I've read this story before. But anyway, lots of stories to come in the future. But I do want to tell you this as a church, because some of you have asked. We're definitely going to take trips as a church in the future. I don't have the details on that now, but I'll tell you more later, okay? Today, however, I want to start off by throwing something out there that might cause some division in here, because people have very strong opinions on this particular topic. In fact, this has been a debate between people for all of time. Unfortunately, family members have been divided, friends get divided, people question each other's character, all based on this timeless debate. In fact, you're gonna get to know some people around you here in a second, depending on where they land. And I'm gonna encourage you not to do this, but don't send judgmental looks back and forth in here, okay? Are you ready for this topic? Dogs or cats? Whoa, okay, hold on. Remember, just see what everyone's got an opinion. Hold on for a second. I'm gonna try to stay as neutral as I possibly can in this. Let's start with cats. How many of you are cat people? Let's hear from the cat people. Ooh. Okay, cat people. All right, yeah, okay. Really, it was kind of like borderline a meow. I don't know what that was. You love cats, right? Like maybe you have 6 of them in your house. Maybe you're that person, but you just think, man, cats are amazing. And you question other people who have dogs. Like, how could they have dogs? Dogs smell, dogs tear things up. Cats are amazing. Look, they're cute, they purr, they snuggle up next to you when you stroke their head. Cats are great, you're on cats. Okay, now, how many of you are dog people? Of course the dog people are louder, right? Right. Man's best friend. You love your dog or dogs. You're all in. They are a part of your family. In fact, you refer to them. You think your dog calls you mom or dad, even though they can't talk. I've always thought that's weird. Like they refer to you as mom or dad, and you question cat people. Like cats aren't cute. They're not cute. Like cats, they walk around like they own the place, right? They flip their tail up so they show you a part of their anatomy that nobody wants to see. And if you notice this, the cats, they just have this look in their eyes, this look of murder, right? If you're not careful, I'm gonna kill you. That's what cats like, they look at you like that. On top of this, your dog is the most excited creature on the planet when you come home. Like, how can you not love dogs, right? You're a dog person. Now, I just want you to know as your pastor where I kind of stand. I don't hate cats, I don't. I don't. Things I did to a cat as a kid. I'm allergic to cats, so if you have 6 cats, I can't come to your house. I wouldn't be able to breathe. But I would say that I'm a dog person. Like I just am. So you guys can claim me on your side. There's 4 people that are excited about that. Now, I want to throw out one more category here. Like we've got cat people, we've got dog people, and I think Colorado is a dog state. Just that kind of settles the debate. One more category. What about sheep? How many sheep people? There are some sheep people. Maybe that sounds weird to you, but if we go back 2,000 years to the Middle East, here's the truth. Everybody would have looked down on dogs and cats. Like as blasphemous as that sounds to us, nobody cared about dogs or cats, but they cared about sheep. Sheep were a very real part of Middle Eastern life in the 1st century, so much so that they got used as an analogy because most people would have understood sheep. Jesus uses them as a sheep. This is John 10. I'm gonna start in verse 1. This is Jesus talking. He says, I tell you the truth. Anyone who sneaks over the wall of the sheepfold rather than going through the gate must surely be a thief and a robber. But the one who enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep recognize his voice and come to him. He calls his own sheep by name and he leads them out. After he's gathered his own flock, he walks ahead of them and they follow him because they know his voice. They won't follow a stranger. They'll run away from him because they don't know his voice. Now, what Jesus said here, that might be missed on some of us because I'm guessing that most of you, I'm making this assumption, most of you are probably like me and that you have no experience with sheep. When we're talking about sheep, I mean, for the people that got excited, sorry, but there's really not a lot of exciting things about sheep. They're not the brightest in the animal kingdom. They've got no natural defenses, no fangs, no paws, no razor sharp claws. I mean, that'd be pretty cool, but they've got none of that. They don't have natural camouflage. No, actually, they're the opposite of camouflage. They are big balls of white, fluffy wool. That is the opposite of trying to blend into your surroundings. In fact, what that is that's a neon sign that alerts every predator in the area that, hey, you can come have me as a snack and afterwards you can take a nap because you can make me into a pillow. That's what a sheep is. That's what they are. Basically, hey, let's just be real. They're right above squirrels on the food chain, okay? So back then, sheep were raised for all kinds of reasons, but the primary reason, more often than not, they were raised for their wool. And a shepherd would typically tend his flock, his sheep. He would raise them for years. So this actually became a very personal occupation. Jesus even mentions it. The shepherd would name each one of the sheep in his flock. The sheep would be able to recognize their own particular name. Now at night, the sheep relied on 24-hour-a-day care from the shepherd in order for them to survive. At night, the shepherd would put them into a sheepfold, either out in the country or even in town. If they were in town, this sheepfold would be this pretty sound structure where it would be a communal corral. This is the illustration that Jesus is using. The shepherd would put all of his sheep in there, and there would be multiple flocks in this one corral. So all the sheep would mix together. And he says that the shepherd would come, and the gatekeeper, most often these communal corrals would have a professional gatekeeper. The shepherd would come, the gatekeeper would recognize that guy as the legitimate shepherd and let him in. So the shepherd would walk into this big sheepfold. He'd walk around all of these sheep, all these mixed up flocks, trying to get his own. That seems like a mess to me. Like, how do you get your sheep out without letting them wander out or taking somebody else's? I mean, in American culture, we're big on efficiency and logistical solutions, right? This seems like the opposite of that to me. Like, how do you get your sheep out? They didn't do it back then, but even if they branded and tagged their sheep, that's gonna be chaos, right? You got some wandering out when you're trying to get these over here. You got some of your sheep hiding in the back. They're all mixed together. To me, this seems like trying to get your 4-year-old out of a trampoline park at a birthday party. Yeah, parents know exactly what I'm talking about right now. You start making empty threats and then promising ice cream that you never intend on paying on. Like, you're never getting that 4-year-old out. How are you getting all of these sheep out, getting only yours out? Like, that just seems impossible. So what would a shepherd do? This is the crazy part. This is so cool to me. What the shepherd would do is he would begin to talk to his sheep in a very specific song that only his sheep would recognize and respond to. He would start speaking and his sheep would follow him out. Not one more, not one less. Like, how cool is that? They would know and recognize his voice and they would just follow him out. Not other people's sheep, just his. And they would follow. To me, that is so cool. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty awesome being just outside of Jerusalem and seeing flocks on hillsides with shepherds. It's pretty surreal for me to see that. I read that sometimes travelers to the Middle East will actually pay a shepherd for their clothes and they'll try to disguise themselves as that shepherd and see if they can call his sheep. Never works though. The sheep never come because they only obey the voice that they know. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? That a voice can have that much influence, a voice can have that much power. So immediately the first question that pops into my head is, what voice am I listening to? Let me ask you the same question. What voice are you listening to? Now, obviously, people and sheep, we're not the same. Man, if I'd spent time, it would be dumb. It'd be a waste of time for me to explain all of the reasons we are different from sheep, right? But there is a reason that Jesus, and at other points in the Bible, there's a reason that people are described as sheep. Now, we don't have wool. Kind of wearing some today. This was not intentional at all. We don't have fluffy white wool. Unlike sheep, we're actually at the top of our food chain. When it comes to intelligence, that's not comparable, right? But there are things that we do that are the exact same things that sheep do. First and foremost, a voice can have a lot of power over us too. And there's all kinds of voices in the world today. And what we tend to do, when I say we, I mean everybody. What we tend to do is we start listening to a voice or multiple voices, and then before long, we start obeying and following that voice, whether we recognize it or not. That's why I asked you, hey, what voice are you following? There's countless voices today. In fact, you have multiple voices in your ear daily. I just want you to stop and think about this. Let's think for a second. These voices aren't just literally people talking to you, but it's much broader than that. Let me give you some examples. Social media. You scrolling, every reel that you watch, every post that you look at and read, it's a different voice, right? Your friends are voices that speak into your life. This is why it's so important to be careful who your friends are. We hit on this earlier in the year. Be careful who your friends are because who you run with shapes who you are. And Kelly and I have this conversation with our kids all the time about choosing friends wisely because friends have an influence on you. They speak into your life. Or what about every advertisement or marketing campaign? All of those are different voices, and they're not trying to sell you a product. That voice is trying to sell you a message that's behind that product. Or politics. Politics, a lot of noise there. Telling you what to do, what to believe. Here's the thing about politics. Politics never lead out. Politics always follow. Any kind of political movement follows a cultural movement. Politics are always a follower, and cultural narratives are some of the loudest voices today. You hear me hit on this a lot because I don't want you to go numb to this. I want you to see this. There's all kinds of cultural narratives today that are loud, telling you what to think, what to believe, and what to do, trying to get in your ear. Or what about Netflix? It's full of voices, all on one entertainment platform. And maybe you think, well, it's just entertainment. No, it's not. It's not just entertainment. Entertainment is an easy way to get you to listen to whatever voice is behind that entertainment. You gotta recognize it. Or what about the media? Talking heads. If you haven't lost your mind yet listening to the media, they're trying to get in your ear, trying to tell you what to do, what to think, what to believe. Or podcasts. I love podcasts. I listen to them when I work out or cut the grass or drive. But today there are countless number of podcasts, right? Anybody can start a podcast tomorrow. That means there is a limitless amount of voices. There's all kinds of things. And those aren't bad things. Like full disclaimer, I have Netflix. I'm on social media. I watch the news. I have political convictions. I have friends, at least I think I do. Like those things aren't bad in and of themselves, but the point is, man, you can't avoid those things. It's everyday life. But where those things will become a problem for you is if you're not able to recognize the one voice that actually matters. Guys, this is where you say, yeah, it's my wife's voice. No, that's a different conversation. But when I say the one voice that matters, V is capitalized because it's a name. If you're not able to recognize the one voice that actually matters, then you will, not you might, you will eventually end up in a spot that you never would have said, yeah, this is where I want to go. Or this is what I want to be. Or this is what I want to happen to me. So the question is, how do you recognize that voice, the one that matters? Well, without being overly simplistic, you got to know it. Jesus breaks this down even more. I'm gonna read a big chunk. This is starting in verse 6. Here's what Jesus says. Those who heard Jesus use this illustration didn't understand what he meant, so he explained it to them. I tell you the truth, I am the gate for the sheep. All who come before me were thieves and robbers, but the true sheep did not listen to them. Yes, I am the gate. Those who come through it will be saved. They will come and go freely and will find good pastures. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. A hired hand will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him and he isn't their shepherd. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. The hired hand runs away because he's working only for money and doesn't really care about the sheep. I'm the good shepherd. I know my own sheep and they know me, just as my Father knows me and I know the Father. So I sacrifice my life for the sheep. I have other sheep too. He's talking about anybody who's not a Jew. So this is us. I have other sheep too that are not in the sheepfold. I must bring them in also. They will listen to my voice, and there will be one flock and one shepherd. The Father loves me because I sacrifice my life so I may take it up again. I love this part. No one can take my life from me. It's a big statement by Jesus. I sacrifice my life voluntarily, for I have the authority to lay it down when I want and also take it back up again, which he's going to do later on. For this is why my Father has commanded me. I think there's two common things that everybody wants. I think everybody wants to be needed and everybody wants to be known. I'm willing to bet that about you. Like that you want to be needed and you want to be known. I want that. Man, I want to be needed. It feels good to me needed, doesn't it? Now, I want to be needed by my wife. I want to be needed by my kids. I want to be needed by my friends. I want to be needed by the people that I serve with, because whenever you feel like you're needed, it feels like you have value, doesn't it? Now we know that's not what brings you value, but being needed feels like you have value. And at the same time, everybody wants to be known. Now, there's two extremes to wanting to be known, and they're both bad. One extreme is that if your pursuit in life is for you to be known, meaning the most amount of people possible know your name, where you become the topic of conversations, where your selfie game is over the top and a bit obnoxious, that's not wanting to be known, that's wanting to be recognized. Then the other extreme of this is, you do want to be known, but if you're known by people, you're actually afraid that, well, what happens if they find out something about me that they don't really like? Will they reject me? Will they bail on me? So there's this desire for you to be known in real relationships, that you want people to know who you are, like what you're about, what your story is, but you're just afraid, so it's much easier to stay on the surface level, because what if they find out, fill in the blank, and then they bail? Don't be paralyzed by and don't be attached to what people think about you. And that's much easier said than done, because what we tend to do, again, we meaning all people, we tend to care way too much about what other people think. And maybe you're saying, well, hey man, no, I don't care what people think about me. Okay, pump the brakes before you say that. I used to be that guy too. I don't care what people think about me, but is that really true? And do you want that to be true? Now, there's definitely people that you should care less of what they think about you. Critics, people that don't count in your life in any kind of way, or they're toxic, whatever. You're gonna know when there's people, I don't need to care what they think. But don't you care what your wife thinks about you? You care what your kids think about you? Like, one of my personal life goals, and this is something that I hope is true today, and I hope it's true the day I die or the day Jesus comes back, whichever one comes first. But I'm gonna have to earn this every single day, is that I want my wife and I want my 3 kids to respect me more than anybody else. Now, I have an unfair advantage in gaining other people's respect than most people do. The reason I have an unfair advantage of gaining other people's respect is because I stand on the stage every week. So there are plenty of people that only hear me or see me on a Sunday morning on this stage, or they hear me during the week listening to the podcast or online, and that's the only interaction that person ever has with me. Frankly, it's really easy to gain someone's respect that way, because you see me for 30 minutes. My wife and my kids, they see me all the time. They know the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want them to respect me the most, more than any other people, and I gotta earn that daily. But what we tend to do, maybe I say we, I think this is all of us, but maybe you're better than me in this. What I tend to do is I tend to care too much about what people think, the people that I shouldn't care about what they think. And then I don't care about what the people who matter the most to me think, because it's unconditional love. Don't let what everybody else thinks about you paralyze you. Don't let it control the way you feel or even the direction you go. Now, have you ever been in a spot where people don't think very well of you? Maybe they're mad at you. Maybe they're disappointed by you. Maybe they even tell you about it. Anybody here ever been in that spot where people don't think very highly of them? Am I the only one? Don't lie. Make me feel really lonely. Well, personally, I've been in those stretches multiple times. There was one particular stretch where there were quite a few people not happy with me. They were mad about a decision or decisions I made. They didn't like the direction I was leading. They didn't like what I believe or what I said. And there were plenty of people that let me know about it. Taking different kinds of shots. I got called all different kinds of names. I didn't have to wonder, I wonder if people don't think very well of me right now. No, it was painfully obvious. Now, that's always going to be true. You're never going to be at a spot in life where everybody just thinks you're great and everybody thinks well of you. In fact, if you ever do get to that spot, that's probably a different kind of problem that we could talk about. There's going to be times. And I think that for the most part, I have a pretty thick skin, but this particular season, it was pretty painful for me. So I called my dad and I said, Dad, I want you to do something for me. I want you to write a letter to me. And I want you to tell me what you think about me. I want you to tell me what you see in me. I want you to tell me what you think I'm good at. I want you to tell me what you see God doing in me and through me. I want you to tell me what you think about me. And please don't email it to me. I want you to write it out so I have it in your handwriting. And he said, done. 4 days later, I had a letter from my dad in my mailbox. And I knew it was going to be good. But when I opened that letter and I read it, man, I was in tears. Today, I keep that letter in my safe at home. And the reason I asked him to write me that letter was so that when I'm going through a rough season, when I screw up, when I'm not winning, when I got people that are ticked off at me or telling me what they think about me and it's not good, I don't have to care what other people say about me. I don't have to worry what other people think about me because here I have a letter that says what my dad thinks about me. And what my dad thinks about me, I care about that more than anybody else and what they think about me. And as cool as it is to have a letter from your dad saying what he thinks about you, how cool would it be to have a letter like that from Jesus? Like Jesus telling you what he thinks about you. I mean, right here, he said, I know my own sheep and they know me. He knows you. He knows everything about you. That deep, dark secret that nobody else knows about. Your screw-ups where you struggle, the good stuff about you, he knows you, he knows all of you, and he doesn't say, man, this guy's a screw-up, or good grief, this girl's a train wreck. That's not what he says. Instead, he voluntarily died for you. You cannot think poorly of someone and then voluntarily lay down your life for them. You've got to really love them and want something for them if you're willing to die for them. That's what the Good Shepherd did for you. And then he says, man, I want you to know me just as much as I know you. And the more you know someone, the more you're gonna be able to recognize their voice, right? Well, he says two big things here. Recognizing his voice, two big things. Number one, I'm the good shepherd. I want you to know me and I want you to follow me. As much as we love the idea of autonomy and individualism, I mean, that's very valued in Western culture, isn't it? You do you. It's my life to live, my decisions, my choices, my truth. I am my own individual. I am a unique person. We love the idea of autonomy and being individualistic. There's a high value of that in our culture, but we're all followers. Every single one of us. You're a follower and so am I. I don't care how much of a leader you are or how individualistic you think you are. You follow something, you follow a voice. I mean, even if it's the you do you, I ascribe to that, you do you. That's just you following the voice of culture. Do you follow the voices you hear in the media? Do you follow the voices you hear on social media reels? Like voices, what voices do you follow? Here's what's gonna happen. Whatever voices you listen to will be the voices you follow. Whatever voices that you listen to, those are the voices you're gonna follow. That's why I asked you, do you really know what you're listening to? Do you know what voices you're listening to? Do you know what you're following? Do you know where they're leading you? And one of my biggest fears for just our culture in general, and my fear as your pastor, this is something that I'm scared about and I think about all the time for our church. Do you really know what you're listening to? Do you really know what voices you're following? Jesus said, my sheep, they know me. They hear my voice and they follow me. First thing he says, I'm the good shepherd. Second thing he says is, I am the gate. Go back to that sheepfold. A sheepfold would have been a walled-in structure. It would have been pretty solid to protect the sheep, and it would have had one doorway that was wide open, which seems like a faulty engineering design. If the point of this is to protect the sheep, why do you have an open doorway that anything or anyone can walk in and out of? Well, what would have happened would have been the shepherd at night, once the sheep are in the sheepfold, the shepherd would have laid down in that doorway, right in the middle of it for him to go to sleep. That way, any wild animal or thief would have to go through him to get to the sheep. He was literally making himself the door. He literally made himself the gate. That's why Jesus said, yeah, I am the gate. Those who come in through me will be saved. They will come in and go freely and will find good pastures. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. Some translations say, I came to give life and give it abundantly, or give it to the full. Anybody down for that? Who doesn't want an abundant life that's rich and satisfying? Man, I'm in on that. But way too often we settle for counterfeits. Anything, if Jesus is the gate to salvation, if he's the gate to this rich and satisfying, this abundant life, anything that doesn't go through him, Jesus calls that a thief. If you've got a church background at all, usually we're taught that this means Satan. And it can mean Satan, but it can be more than that, because right here it says thief. It's not capitalized. It's not referring to a name. It's not referring to just one individual. Yeah, it could be Satan, but that thief could also be a cultural narrative. It could be an ideology. It could be someone else. So anything that doesn't go through Jesus, anything that contradicts his word, anything that goes against what he's commanded, anything that runs opposite to his character, he says it's a thief, and it's meant to steal from you, not give you. It's meant to kill you, not give you life, and it's meant to destroy everything around you. This is everywhere today. There are so many counterfeit good shepherds in our culture. Counterfeit promises to the ones that Jesus just gave. I mean, let me give you a couple examples. Number one would be prosperity. This is an easy one to point at because this is one of America's pastimes. What the counterfeit will tell you is that, hey, if you want a rich and abundant life, the more money you make, the greater your portfolio is, the more prestigious job you have, the higher earning potential you've got, the more stuff you have, that's how you will have an abundant and satisfying life. The voices will tell you, you don't need Jesus to have an abundant and rich and satisfying life. You can get that through your prosperity. And we buy it. We buy into it all the time. And this is one of the reasons why we freak out when the market is a mess or tanking, or when we have unexpected expenses. That's been Kelly and I have lately. Man, we had to buy a car unexpectedly. Our house got drilled by that hailstorm this week, had somebody looking at our roof this week. Oh, the rental car that we had because we were buying a new car got hail damage, and we got more ER bills for my youngest son because apparently he's got a fondness for stitches. I asked the hospital, could we have a punch card? They said no. So, we've just gotten overwhelmed the last month or so. And we freak out with stuff like that because you know what? We rely on money to give us stuff that only Jesus can. It's counterfeit. Or another counterfeit's the sexual revolution. And I hit on this one a lot, and I'm not gonna stop because this is one that's killing people today. The cultural narrative with sex today is that the more curious you are, the more frequent you get it, the more free and experimental you are, especially outside of the context of marriage, that's what you're missing out on. That's what will give you an abundant life. What voices in our culture will say, and if you're younger, please listen to me on this. Please listen to me on this. What the voices in our culture will tell you is that you're missing out on something when it comes to sex and you gotta find it. And if you want to have some kind of satisfaction, that's not found in Jesus. Jesus is actually repressive. Just do whatever you want sexually. Anything you find desirable sexually, that's what will fulfill you. That's what a thief's voice sounds like. And this isn't just me saying this. We're now having science back this up. The destruction that's happening with individuals, how marriages are being destroyed, how families are being destroyed, how it's starting to have generational consequences. It's because we've bought into this counterfeit narrative about sex. It's one of the ways that the thief really easily tries to steal from us and kill us and destroy it. We're seeing it happen live. It's counterfeits. Let me give you one more that actually this might sound crazy to you. Morality. Moralism can be a counterfeit. And before you hear me saying that it's bad, it's not. There's nothing wrong with moralism in and of itself. It's actually a good thing. It becomes a counterfeit when we do something with it. Did you know that Satan is all for morality? He is all for it. He will lead the charge holding the flag for good morals. He's all for morality as long as it's detached from Jesus. When that happens, we're buying into a counterfeit. What it is it's saying, hey, you being a good person, you can have an abundant and rich and satisfying life. You can do that yourself by being a good person or having good morals, whatever that actually means. And where this is so dangerous is because it makes you believe, it lies to you that you are your own good shepherd and you think you're set. Here's the truth. This is the scary part. Moralism is the road that leads to hell, but it takes you right past the gates of heaven. It makes you think you're good. I'm heading to heaven. Look how good of a person I am. This is like what the Pharisees thought. This is great. Then all of a sudden you end up in a spot where you never intended to be or thought you could possibly be. That's why Satan loves moralism, detached from Jesus. If your good morals or your morality is not connected to your relationship and you following Jesus, then you've been sold a lie that's meant to take from you, and the lie is telling you that you are your own good shepherd. And one day you're gonna find out that your good morals without Jesus mean nothing. The only way to have this rich and satisfying life that Jesus is talking about, life to the full, an abundant life, the only way to experience that is through him. That's it. There's no other way. And we should be grateful for that we don't have to guess and look. It's him. Now, this rich and satisfying, this abundant life, that doesn't mean it's full of stuff, comfort, and ease. No, this is not health, wealth, and prosperity. Not at all. In fact, the people that were the closest to Jesus, the people that were the giants of the faith in Scripture and now are some of the people that suffer the most. What this is, the way that Scripture describes the Good Shepherd is that he leads you to green pastures, good pastures. He leads you beside still waters. He goes after the strays. He leaves the 99 and goes after the one. He keeps the sheep away from poisonous plants or cliffs. He protects them from wolves. That's what happens. It's you being so relationally close to Jesus, where you know him and he knows you, and you follow him as he leads, not you lead. He shows you and he helps you use the gifts that he's given you. You have gifts that he's given you, and those gifts are not meant for you. They're not meant to make you feel fulfilled or build you up. Your gifts are meant for you to glorify him and serve other people, which will let you experience this undeserved privilege and blessing of being part of his mission. Not my mission, not your mission, not anybody else's. His mission to redeem and restore the world. That's the abundant life. But what the enemy will do and what the voices in our world will do is they will offer you counterfeits. But the more you know his voice, the more you can recognize his voice, the more you'll be able to recognize the counterfeits. And they're only meant to steal from you and kill you and things around you and bring in destruction. So once again, what voices are you listening to? What voices are you listening to? Where are they leading you? And if you call LifeBridge home, I don't want you just to listen to me. Like something I pray every single Sunday morning when I'm driving in here. I pray for you every week. During the week when I'm studying and prepping, I pray this too. Jesus, what do you want me to say? Give me what to say and I'll say it. I'm just a messenger. I want you to hear from him. That's right there. What voices are you really listening to? Man, going back to that letter, as cool as it is to have a letter from my dad, that letter's one page. This is a letter from God. It's a lot more pages than that. Picture this as a letter written from God to you saying, here, I want you to know me. What we tend to do is we tend to write ourselves in the Bible as if we're the main character. Not it at all. This is a letter from God to you about, here's who I am. And the more you get to know him in here, the more you'll get to know yourself and see who you really are. You can't know who you really are until you know who Jesus really is. And from there, you'll start to see, man, this is what you think about me? This is awesome. It doesn't mean there's not gonna be hard things and convicting things. My dad is quick to point out things that I need to work on. Matthew, again, my family calls me Matthew. You don't get to call me that. He'll say, Matthew, this is a blind spot for you. And you usually like to learn the hard way. My dad said that to me all the time growing up. He's saying that less as an adult, which is great. I'm growing. He'll point out hard things or stuff that's conflicting, convicting, that's the word I'm looking for. Convicting to me. Why does he do that? Because he loves me. And he wants me to grow and he wants me to thrive. God will do that to you too. He's not just gonna say, oh, you're awesome. I love everything about you. Let me affirm everything about you. That's not what somebody does that loves you. They tell you, here's what you're good about. Here's how I love you regardless of the stuff that you're not good at, regardless of your mistakes, but let me show you where you need to grow and I'll help you. So you gotta know this. And sometimes this is hard and I'm gonna beat on this drum all the time. Get around other people that know it too. Get in community. We go through this together. We get to know them together. Sheep are in a flock, right? When they're in a flock, there's protection. No natural defenses, right? But if they're in a flock together, they got a shepherd. They got strength in numbers. The sheep that's isolated and by itself, easy picking for the wolves. Easy picking for the wolves. Get with other people. And one more thing. The more you listen to his voice, the more you'll be able to know it and recognize it. But if you hear his voice and disregard it or ignore it, it gets harder and harder to hear it. That's why the Old Testament says, and then it's repeated in Romans, it says, when you hear my voice, respond. When you hear my voice, follow. So don't neglect it, don't ignore it, don't reject it. It gets harder and harder to listen. What voices are you listening to? Where are you taking? And do you want to know him? Let me pray for us. Jesus, thank you for being a God that speaks to us, not only in your word, but you say anyone who gives their life to you, that when we put our faith and trust in you, that your spirit then resides in us. What a gift that we get to hear you. I pray that we would be able to recognize your voice, know it, and love it. That you would give us the wisdom and understanding and discernment as a church to be able to recognize the counterfeits or the voice of thieves and robbers, and that we wouldn't buy into it, but that we would know you and we would have the courage and the boldness and the joy to follow you. I pray that you would give us as a church, everyone in here and everyone joining us online, would you just give us a new hunger to hear your voice, a zeal to go after it, that we would draw near to you, and you say that when we do that, you draw near to us. Let that be true of our church. Would you speak to us? Let us hear you and let us follow. It's in your precious name we pray. Amen.